Hi there, I'm Heather Lyle, and welcome to Fitzmaurice Voicework for Sensational Singing. So, I am a singing teacher called a vocalogist, which is a voice specialist, and I am going to take you through a few things that are, I guess I would say, more conventional singing, and then also Fitzmaurice Voicework and how you can use that to enhance your singing. Okay, so the very first thing that we as vocalogists want all singers to do now is to start your practice with a straw. And there's different straws that you can use for different reasons. First off, it's very nice to have a little straw hanging around your neck. This is a beautiful straw by Ovo Straws. That's ovostraws.com. And this I can use to make sound in. I can use a particular straw hanging around my neck, or I can come over to where I have a box called the voice straw. And these I love because this is made by another vocalogist named Mindy Pack, who I went to school with. And this is pretty cool. Mindy Pack has made a little case, and she has 3 sizes of straws. So when someone's first starting out to do straw work, we call it straw phonation. We usually start with a regular size drinking straw. And then from there, we want to go to a little small diameter straw that would be like a cocktail stirring straw. And then the hardest straw to use is a straw that has a very small diameter but is long, right? What I like about her particular package is that she has 3 straws in it. What you're going to do is you're going to take a straw and you're just going to make an ooh in it. And why we're doing this is it actually turns out that very little of our voice actually ever gets out of our body. How much do you think probably gets out of our body? I usually hear 50%, 60, 40, 30. The actual answer is less than 5%. And what's actually happening is when we make sound, speech or singing, especially in singing, the sound waves come from our vocal cords that are attached right behind the notch in your larynx. That's where they attach. They are a ½ an inch, but they're together in the front and open in the back. And when we make sound, they come together and they buzz like a pair of lips. And then what happens to that sound from here is that sound comes up and it bounces off of the cavities, and then the sound goes back to the vocal cords. It bounces off the front of the face, some goes into the sinus cavity, mouth, teeth, goes back to the vocal cords. So we have this moving back and forth of vibrations in here. How you get loud is actually how you deal with these vibrations and how you do what we call couple your resonators, which is how you put your resonators inside together. Less than 5 is getting out of your mouth. So we want all this sound to really be stimulated, and that's what creates what the Italians used to call filare a suono, which means spinning the air. You really are spinning sound waves, which I like to call sound-colored air, inside your head. Now, the more they spin and go back to the vocal cords, the more they actually heal your vocal cords. So if you have a straw, what happens now is your lips are at the end of the straw. And if you make sound, it extends these sound waves through here, back to the vocal cords, and it actually massages your vocal cords. Not only does it massage the vocal cords, but the vocal cords actually, they come together from the bottom, and then they roll on each other, and then they open, but sometimes that's not a really graceful movement. The use of the straw makes them line up really, really well exactly at the bottom and then roll on each other. So you get this really beautiful waving of the vocal cords. Okay, it's a lot of explanation for a simple thing to do. You can do this 3 times a day, 3 to 5 minutes, or whenever you want. Keep one in your car, walk around with one like this. Woo. All you have to do is make a sound, an ooh, a vowel. You can sing a song in here, but make a sound where you feel air coming here. So don't hum. We use humming for a different reason. Here you're just going to make a sound. Make sure there's air coming out of here. I could hum. My air is not going in here. My air is coming out of my nose if I hum. So you're going to make a sound, like an ooh, a woo. You can sing the song as I said in it. Start in an easy range, and then go higher, lower, and expand out your range. This will help you smooth going over what we call the break in the voice, and this also extends your range. Let's play for a few minutes. If you have a straw, use it. And if you don't have a straw, get one, and then come back and do this video with me. So my first use for the straw that I love is that we are actually stretching the vocal cords in the healthiest way that they can be stretched. The second thing that I love about this is that we're generating the sensation of airflow, and also put your hands on your abdominal muscles. If you watch Jeff Morrison's video, you know that the abdomen expands and the lower ribs open when we breathe, right? Now, that's great, right? But if you put your hand on the straw, what you'll notice is that as you get higher, the abdominal muscles, particularly the transverse abdominis, engages more as you get higher. So low pitch does not use a whole lot of transverse engagement in singing, but it uses a little bit. That's because we don't need a lot of air pressure coming from the core up to the vocal cords. The air is not actually coming from the core to the vocal cords, but the abdominal muscles are actually controlling your airflow to the vocal cords. The abs come in, which exerts a force on the diaphragm, which exerts a force on the lungs, which exerts a force up the trachea to the vocal cords. So we really are with the abdomen controlling airflow. Okay, and air pressure. Take your straw again, and we're just going to do some woos. Let your belly release and ribs swing on inhalation. And let go. You'll know you're engaging the transverse abdominis because the transverse abdominis, actually being a corset muscle, engages the corset and lifts and opens the bottom of the rib cage. So you'll feel your rib cage opening from the bottom and even up to the sternum. Let's do it again. This engagement that happens very naturally with a straw was in the Italian school of singing called appoggio. And appoggio means leaning. And what it means is the muscles of inhalation, which are your costal muscles and your diaphragm lowering, are leaning against the muscles of exhalation, which are another set of costal muscles and your transverse abdominis. So those two muscles, neither one is giving out. The posture of inhalation is staying because the rib cage is open and lifted, and the abdominal muscles are engaged. So two things are happening at the same time. That's called appoggio. And the sensation is often felt in the upper abdominal muscles, but also you can feel some engagement of the diaphragm at the same time. The straw is the only thing I've ever found that really just makes that naturally happen to me. And this is a natural occurrence when we're little kids, when we're babies and we're little toddlers. Our body only knows how to use appoggio for making sound. It doesn't have any sort of disconnection from deep breathing. And that's one of the reasons why deep breathing is so important, is that the breath has to get down into the abdominal area. We know the breath's not really going in the abdomen, but when we feel the breath in the low part of the lungs, that means that the diaphragm has lowered and pushed your abdominal viscera out, and you have the sensation of what we call a low breath. So that's super important and super natural when we're little kids. We discovered that when we start school, low breathing starts to disappear, which is really, really sad. Okay, play with your straw. One time, notice again. What's happening? And you may feel a little bit of cramping in your diaphragm or intercostal muscles when you're playing with the straw, because you're staying in the what we call position of inhalation with that diaphragm down and rib cage open for longer than we're used to. So you can sometimes feel the diaphragm cramping a little bit or pressing on your rib cage, or the rib cage saying, I want it closed, but the lower muscles of exhalation, which we never really think about this, but the two sets of abdominal muscles, the transverse abdominis and the obliques, are muscles of exhalation. They're being active. That's what restructuring is. Restructuring is making what is often the use of passive muscles active, because we're doing an activity of speech or singing, right? Normally your abdominal muscles are completely passive. Normally, if you take a big breath and you exhale, exhalation is just a collapse. There's no activity in the abdominal muscles unless we choose to make them active. And when we make them active, that's called support, because by having the abdominal muscles active, we can control what's happening with the airflow coming to what we call the glottis, which is the vocal cords, the space literally between the vocal cords. We can control that if we have active abdominal muscles. Okay, enough voice signs. Let's move on to an exercise. So, the thing that we usually do next after straws, we want to do some sort of what we call semi-occluded exercise. That means things where you don't let a lot of air flow out of your mouth, so that you create a lot of activity of these sound waves going back and forth in your resonators, okay? We usually like to do lip buzzes. So let's start those. You start the lip buzzes by pulling in your belly, actually. It's kind of, you wouldn't think that. Let me see if I can show you my abs. That's how I start my lip buzzes. Now the fun thing